this, there's a classic Greek word, hegemonikon, which describes this, which you don't need to worry about, but it's just fascinating how it all overlaps. Yes, Thoreau is advocating for a specific principle that we live our lives by. He starts out in the very first paragraph. The greatest compliment that was ever paid to me was when one asked me what I thought and attended to my answer. It says, most people will never go to law for my meat. They prefer the shell. Explain that to me. Why is that the greatest compliment that could ever be paid?
Because it's somebody caring to hear about who you are and what you think and what your principles are, and like not just like something you have to say or like
Okay.
what's on the surface.
Okay. Do you think that's uncommon? Like when you interact with your fellows, do they actually want to know about you, who you are, what you think about things, or is it just merely exchanging pleasantries?
I think it depends on the relationship, because I
Okay.
have certain relationships that I feel that sort of connection with, but then there are others that are just more just pleasantries, they're just nice people to have around and having a good time. But there are some friends that are specifically that will go into a lot of detail on philosophies, will go into, we'll go into debates, we'll have all these like interesting discussions, like bring different points of view to the conversation, and we kind of open our eyes for other points of view instead of just our own.
Okay.
I feel there are levels with relationships as far as friends, family, whatever it may be. There are certain people I feel more comfortable with doing that sort of thing. When others, it's more of, yeah, these are just people I enjoy being around.
Do you think that you should try to treat more people in that way? I mean, think about when you're walking, I don't know, campus, you see someone, you meet, oh, hey, how's it going? And you keep walking. It is said that Thoreau, when someone asked him, oh, hey, how's it going? He would actually tell them. And it would drive people insane, because he would stand there and start talking to them for like 10, 15 minutes about, oh, what's going on in his life and how things are. And they were just trying to be nice.
I think life's too busy for us to have that luxury to be the Socrates of our day, where we just go around talking the ear off of everybody we meet. And I think that's where the problem is, where there's just not enough time in the day to really get into those deep conversations all the time.
So there's too much busyness. Okay. Well,
I think personality plays a role in it too. Like some people just don't want to talk.
that is true. That is true. I will admit that. But it seems that all people desire connection somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may not be interested in talking, but they enjoy listening. So you can still have that interaction, that that connection, even though you are the one doing most of the talking, basically. This, oh, he makes me laugh. Okay, the end of the first paragraph, I just have to point this out because it reminds me of myself. It says, there's I've taken it for granted that there is a desire to hear what I think on some subject, though I may be the greatest fool in the country, and not that I shall say pleasant things merely, or such as the audience will assent to. I resolve accordingly that I will give them a strong dose of myself. They have sent for me and engaged to pay for me, and I am determined that they shall have me, though I bore them beyond all precedent. That is how I try and lead my classes. You have sent for me, you have resolved to pay for me. You are going to get the full me, the strong dose of me, even if I bore you beyond all precedent. So, see, Thoreau and I are similar in this sense. This idea of busyness, that fourth paragraph, or third and fourth paragraph, let us consider the way in which we spend our lives. The world is a place of business. What an infinite bustle. I'm awakened almost every night by the panting of the locomotive. It interrupts my dreams. There is no Sabbath. It would be glorious to see mankind at leisure for once. It is nothing but work, work, work. I cannot easily buy a blank book to write thoughts in. They're commonly ruled for dollars and cents. This is still true. If you go to purchase a book, okay, just a regular book with blank pages in it, they are nearly impossible to find. All of them are lined for you. You're lined for business instead of leisure activities. An Irishman, seeing me making a minute in the field, took it for granted that I was calculating my wages. If a man was tossed out of a window and an infant, and so made a cripple for life, or scared out of his wits by the Indians, it is regretted chiefly because he is thus incapacitated for business. I think there is nothing, not even crime, more opposed to poetry, to philosophy, aye, to life itself, than this incessant business. We are constantly busy. We have this busyness about us. We need to take leisure for things. It says that I think there is nothing, that last sentence, I think there is nothing, not even crime, more opposed to poetry, to philosophy, aye, to life itself, than this incessant business. Now the term philosophy that he is using there is not what is commonly understood as philosophy. It's not sitting down and reading these old texts and analyzing them and trying to figure out if Adam had a navel or not. Adam and Eve. You know, Adam probably didn't have a navel.
No, you won.
Yeah, no, that's not what he's talking about with philosophy. What he's saying, and this relates back to the first essay in Walden, it says, there are nowadays professors of philosophy, but not philosophers. Yet it is admirable to profess, because it was once admirable to live. To be a philosopher is not merely to have subtle thoughts, nor even to found a school, but so to love wisdom as to live according to its dictates, a life of simplicity, independence, magnanimity, and trust. It is to solve some of the problems of life, not only theoretically, but practically. So to be a philosopher, in the sense that Thoreau uses the term, is to live according to a principle that you have, to live your life constructed around this. principles. I mean, Thoreau doesn't ever actually say what principle we should live by. What are some options? What principles do you live your life by?
Time over money.
Time over money, okay. So you advocate leisure time instead of making a lot of money, okay?
Curiosity over complacency.
Okay? Curiosity about what?
Just everything.
I mean,
Just, I like learning about things that I haven't learned about before.
okay. I just think, I mean, personally, I have little to no interest in organic chemistry. Yeah, none whatsoever. But, so I'm not necessarily curious about it.
Yeah.
But I still think that learning about things is important. I just didn't know what
Yeah.
your passion was.
Yeah, like, for me personally, like, I like learning about the folklore and mythology of different cultures,
Oh, okay.
both present and past.
Like Joseph Campbell's
Yeah.
Hero of 10,000 Faces.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna, basically having the time for curiosity, like, I think that's how a lot of philosophers, how a lot of science came to be, is they had the extra leisure of, they didn't have anything to do. They just were
Exactly.
able to explore. It's like, it's this idea of exploration before the necessities, like having your needs sufficiently met so that you can explore different options.
There's a great article that I have my students read in some other classes called In Praise of Idleness, which basically says this, that we need to basically do nothing more often. Like have no responsibilities, no obligations whatsoever. Just because when leisure, that's exactly where all of the art, the science, the poetry came from. You know, Beethoven wasn't working 40, 60-hour a week job and then in his spare time writing symphonies. You know, Picasso was not, you know, punching a clock every day, selling life insurance, and then, you know, painting in his free time.
Wasn't Isaac Newton, he was sitting by a tree that had an apple fall on his head, basically, that how he discovered gravity?
Exactly. He had nothing better to do with his life.
Just sit by a tree.
Yes. You know? And that's the idea, is we need to have, we can have this free time, we can have this leisure, as Thoreau describes it, in order to live a better life. We also discussed the notion, or the article by Kate Soper regarding this too, in Alternative Hedonism. The notion of taking pleasure in more simple things that are not related to earning money and going to a job. Next paragraph, paragraph 5, talks about this person that that has tried to enlist him into building this wall. Presumably he would pay him for it. It says that the result will then be he will perhaps get some more money to hoard and leave for his heirs to spend foolishly. If Thoreau goes along with this, he says most people will regard him as an industrious and hardworking fellow. But if I choose to devote myself to certain labors which yield more real profit, though but little money, they may be inclined to look on me as an idler. If I choose to devote myself to certain labors which yield more real profit, though but little money, they may be inclined to look at me as an idler. What are those other labors?
Fast food.
Fast food is a labor that is more profit but little money?
Oh. Probably not.
Okay. I mean, it could be, I don't know.
So when he's saying idler, does that just mean like lazy?
Yeah, somebody who just is idle,
I'm
doesn't
not
do
saying that
anything.
people that work in fast food are lazy, by the way.
I didn't think you were.
I think a lot of nonprofit, like, a lot of nonprofit companies or like organizations that basically, they do a lot for there's a lot of profit in what they do and as far as society goes,
Okay,
but there's not a lot of profit, like, there's not money flowing into their bank accounts because of what they're doing. It's
okay.
It's more of like,
So it's more of a social profit?
yeah,
Okay. What else? What activities do you engage in that yield a lot of profit but very little money?
Like any hobbies that I make no money, I spend my money, but I get a lot of profit for myself.
Okay.
Happiness.
The profit of happiness, okay.
well, I think creating memories for our families or for our relationships. So like, for example, my kids, like when we go out to certain places, a lot of times we're profiting because we're building these relationships. Like
Okay.
having relationship profit sort of thing, but a lot of time there's not like an actual money value to that.
Okay.
Come back to me.
That's all right.
And then the moment I raise my hand, it just.
It happens, yeah. How about something like wisdom? That is perhaps one of the most profitable things you can engage in, is increasing your wisdom, increasing your knowledge. But it typically doesn't pay well. I mean, right now, what you are doing right now, going to school, you are engaging in an activity, in a labor that yields a great amount of profit, but doesn't yield any money. I mean, very few of you are probably, if any, are probably getting paid to go to school right now. You're actually spending a lot of money to come here and listen to me. I feel so flattered. You're spending all this money just to see me. Gosh. But this is so much more profitable. This leads to a better life that you will have, that you will lead. To be able to comprehend the world in which you live in. And this just popped in my head for some reason, but Picasso's painting Guernica. You can look at that painting and go, oh wow, that's really disturbing. But if you have studied that painting, if you understand the motivation for that painting, what it is supposed to represent, the Spanish Civil War, you understand that better. You have this wisdom, you have this connection and understanding, which is so much more profitable for you as an individual than just looking at this painting. It's like, that's really creepy and disturbing, but I don't know why. So Thoreau was, or has been, it's been argued Thoreau is a type of a virtue ethicist. His main questions that he kind of motivated him throughout his life were trying to learn how he ought to live his life. What is the best way to live one's life? How can I be a proper friend, a good neighbor, a good citizen? How can I help my community the most? What is my proper place in the non-human world? Is the non-human world simply for my use that I can pull from? Do I have obligations to it? These are all questions dealing with the virtues, about how to become a good human. He says, looking at the place within nature, looking at the notion of infinite busyness, says, this is the 6th paragraph, if a man walk in the woods for love of them, half of each day, he is in danger of being regarded as a loafer. But if he spends his whole day as a speculator, shearing off those woods and making earth bald before her time, he is esteemed an industrious and enterprising citizen. As if a town had no interest in its forests, but to cut them down. This essay was written in 1863. It is over 160 years since that essay was written. And it would seem that Thoreau is still ahead of his time, and ahead of our time. The idea of shearing off the woods makes you a good, responsible citizen, whereas walking in them, enjoying them, enjoying what the world has to offer, makes you a mere loafer. Beginning of that next paragraph, number 7, and just as a little side note, Whenever I'm reading Thoreau, and I'm sure that he would agree with me, I take the term men or man to be an abbreviation of human or human. So, it says most men would feel insulted if it were proposed to employ them in throwing stones over a wall and then in throwing them back. Merely they might earn their wages. But many are no more worthily employed now. Think, imagine if I were to say, okay, you know what, I will give you a job. But you'll be able to pay all of your necessary expenses. But what I want you to do is I want you to take all of these stones that are right here, toss them over this wall. And then once you have tossed all of those walls, I want all of those stones over the wall. I want you to walk around the wall and toss them back over on the other side again. And once you've done that, go back and just keep doing that over and over and over again.
Yes. So there was actually it was kind of a social art piece that was made that kind of made a similar point. I think it was in New York. But the gentleman who built it basically built this machine that has a crank, and you just crank, and every few seconds it would drop a penny. But the amount that it paid out through consistent would be at the time New York's minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could theoretically be doing basically a minimum wage job by just turning this crank.
He says that, and that's an excellent example. He says that most people now are similarly employed. In fact, I don't have it in this. It says that most people now are employed to be of a less than human. We are employed to simply just do a job and not be fully human. Think of all of the jobs that you've had. What you are expected to do, how you are expected to behave, how you're expected to look. Think of when I was going to school, I waited tables. When you're waiting tables, you are expected to look a certain way. You have your uniform you're supposed to wear, you're supposed to act a certain way, say certain things. You are engaged to be simply a machine. The purpose of your job is to take food from the kitchen to the table. That's it. That is basically your function. And you are paid just to do that. What we should be doing is looking for work that targets us as a human, that gives us pride in ourselves. It says in paragraph 9, the aim of the laborer should be not to get his living, to get a good job, but to perform well a certain work. Do not hire a man who does your work for money, but him who does it for love of it. Someone who is passionate about what they are doing. Something that I have told you repeatedly this semester is find your passion. what you are passionate about, and construct your life around that. Whatever that may be. Who cares if you're not going to be the next Elon Musk or Bill Gates or whatever? Why would you want that when you can be passionate about what you are doing? When you can wake up in the morning and think, I get the opportunity to be my full self today. I can engage with the people around me as a full human. I thought you were clapping there. I was like, oh gee, thanks. Please, save those for the end of the class, and then we'll do that. Okay, that last sentence again. Do not hire a man who does your work for money, but him who does it for love of it. Do you see any problems with that?
I feel like if you're trying to make some money off of something you're passionate about, it can potentially ruin what that passion is.
Oh, interesting, interesting. How so?
Well, like, I played the drums.
Okay.
Like all through elementary school, middle school. I was trying to be, like, I was in a band, we were trying to tour, and do all that stuff. But I was like truly passionate about playing drums. And having the pressure of like living in my parents' house, trying to make money, and having a part-time job. I don't know, it's stressful, and it kind of ruined it. Maybe it was that situation, but.
Okay.
I think your purposes for what you're doing sometimes change. If you start off with a love of it, like but have no boundaries in a way, like if you start for you're doing it out of love for it, but eventually it will become like work, you know, and like that if that becomes your primary purpose in performing that activity, then you're stuck at where you started before, in a way.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's just like going on that, if you're doing something for the love of it, but then it's your primary source of income, then you get stuck in this trap of, oh, I need income, and then you're now exploiting yourself in this thing that you love, and maybe, yeah, like you don't have boundaries set, and like, now it's to going to an extent where you can't enjoy it anymore, and so you get like stuck in this loop, like trying to make money, but, yeah.
Let's skip down a little bit here. We might go back to where we were. No. Middle of the 12th paragraph. Speaking of needing to make money. I foresee that if my wants should be much increased, the labor required to supply them would become a drudgery. If I should sell both my forenoons and afternoons to society, I am sure that for me there would be nothing left worth living for. But currently, those slight labors which afford me a livelihood are so slight and minimal that they're no pleasure to me. So again, going back to the notion of voluntary simplicity, allowing yourself to realize what is not necessary, what is extraneous to living a good life. You can live your life such that your passion can still be your passion.
I think this goes along with kind of what I've been thinking this whole entire time is balance. Because I think there's a balance in all things, that you can't do one thing too long all of the time. Because if you don't have balance, if you don't have the kind of variety of different things that you have passion for, then it can become overwhelming in a sense, because like, if you only do one thing, you only can do that one thing, no matter how much you love it, for so long, until it becomes either repetitive, monotonous, or even just not enjoyable, because you get into a state of, you've exploited all of that what you could learn or what you could actually provide to this activity.
Okay.
Like, you get to a plateau where you're no longer learning, it's just more of, you're just doing the activity to do the activity. But when you add balance and you add other things you add variety, that brings other perspectives that could possibly help with that passion, to an extent, so that you can continue to learn, you can continue to grow. Because I think change helps us grow too, because it helps us view other ways. Because when we hit a plateau, like when I am trying to grow in a certain activity, I hit plateaus all the time. I'll get to a plateau where my capacity in my current state of mind is at its peak for the moment. But then I'll take a break, or I'll go do something else. I'll go, for an extended period of time, and then I'll come back to it, and now my plateau is a lot higher, and I increase even more where I wasn't able to before.
I like that. I think Thoreau would agree with you on that this fixation on one thing, whatever it may be, it could be a fixation on becoming the best drummer, or becoming the best mandolin player, or what have you, making money. It gets to a point where you can't do it anymore. You have to take a break. Next section. There is no more fatal blunderer than he who consumes the greater part of his life getting his living. Imagine that. Imagine consuming the greater part of your life getting your living instead of actually living. The reasons that you have for living, whether it be your kids or the joy of learning, of curiosity, of what have you, spending the majority of your time trapped in an office building, staring at a computer screen, instead of actually living your life.
I think society has trained us with all of the videos and like movies and famous people that say, I'm the way I am because my parents worked until they were dead in the grave, essentially, and now I'm where I'm at. And so a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm gonna do the same thing for my kid so that they can live the life that they want. I'm gonna work myself to the ground, won't care about what I want, won't care about what I need, but I'll only do it for this purpose, and that's the way it is. Like, so that my kid can have the life that they want to live. And it's like a pattern that we seem to fall into a rut.
And I think that being a martyr is an excellent way to go if that's, what you want to be. But it seems kind of miserable. I mean, martyrs don't end well usually.
Well, it's like, I feel like there's always this like cycle that whatever we're doing and like labeling as like the right way to set up the future is going to be what happens again and what the next generation does. Because that's what the previous generation has done.
I'll tell you.
And so it's like,
explain that to me.
well, it's like you're saying like, oh, live working till you're dead in the grave. It's like, that's what now our generation is going to do. Work till we're dead in the grave to set up for our kids. But if that's what each generation is doing progressively, then it's never gonna stop. And so it's like, okay, well, wouldn't it be more beneficial for our children, for the next generation, to set them up better if we didn't work ourselves into the grave and like lived more of like a life not just trying to make money and buying a living, Like he talks about, because like break the cycle, you know?
It's interesting because it's Thoreau's attitudes, being, you know, a virtue ethicist, are focused on the self, on improving yourself. But it's not egocentric in that by improving yourself, by being a better citizen, by being a better friend, by being a better neighbor, you're helping those in your community as well. Reese, to go along with what you said, the end of paragraph 13. Thus, men will lie on their backs, talking about the fall of man, and never make an effort to get up. We think about all of these people that are just saying, oh yeah, life sucks, you know. I work 60 hours a week for basically a pittance and, you know, yada, 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 yada. But they don't make the effort to get up. They don't make the effort to stand up for themselves and say, no, I don't need I can live a better life by making my own decisions. Let me see if I can find this really quickly. 264. That's a great section too. Okay, well, I can't find it easily. Speaking of work, it says it is remarkable that there is little or nothing to be remembered written on the subject of getting a living. How to make getting a living not merely honest and honorable, but altogether inviting and glorious. For if getting a living is not so, then living is not. How can we make getting a living not merely honest and honorable, but inviting and glorious? Think of the jobs that most people have. I think of sales. Trying to convince someone to purchase something they don't need, that they can't afford, so that you can earn a commission. That doesn't seem particularly inviting or glorious, least of which honest and honorable. So what would a style of living be such that it is inviting and glorious, honest and honorable?
Something that aligns with your passions?
Ooh, I would agree.
it's really looking for something that aligns with your passions, but not only that, but aligns with your principles and your values in life, essentially. Like, for me personally, a lot of it's,
Living with a principle.
with a principle, because essentially, like, if you're just gonna work for a company that doesn't really align with what you value, because there's a lot of companies out there, but some of them value, family time, so a lot of them, value vacation time over other things, but then you have the opposite of, where some people value profit more than they value your family time, like, it's the work before the pleasure kind of attitude, and if that's the type of company you wanna work for, then that's what you wanna go for, but overall, for me, when I was looking for a career, it was like, not only what do I enjoy, but how do I wanna live the rest of my life, essentially. And so that's why I'm going into software development for the majority, is because they have a lot of leisure time, but they also have a lot of busy time. Like, it's a lot of learning, it's consistently changing, and it's something that I love doing. But at the same time, I have a lot of the jobs out there for software developers, it's like, your time isn't it's not how many hours can you put in, it's how much work can you get done. It's how can you get the job done that you're being asked. And that's a lot of what I value. It's like, I'm not just punching a time card.
They're not paying you to sit in a chair
Yeah.
for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
They're paying you to do a job. And if you could do that job in 4 hours, great.
It'll give you more to do.
So, but that's just, that's what I value. But that's personally what I want to do, not necessarily, it's not going to be for everyone.
No. Sure would not be for me. I don't like computers. They scare me.
So, but it's all about I think this whole, the Thoreau, it's really finding what you value and how you can give to your society based on your own passions and
Exactly.
your own principles. Find your principle and live to that to its fullest kind of way.
Exactly. Going off of that, paragraph number 20. I was thinking accidentally of my own unsatisfactory life, doing as others do, and with that vision of the diggings still before me, I asked myself why I might not be washing some gold daily, though we're only the finest particles. Why I might not sink a shaft down to the gold within me and work that mine. Finding that gold that is within yourself and working that mine. What is that brilliance that you have within you? Those finest particles of gold. Instead of doing what everyone else does because they tell you to do, the whole idea of, okay, you grow up going to school, then you need to go to school, then you go, after you graduate high school, you go to college, then you get married, and then you have 2.3 kids, and then just because that's how you're supposed to live your life, figure out how you should live your life.
I was actually reading a book on conscious leadership, and it talks a lot about zone of genius. Kind of goes along with this kind of whole idea of when you're leading people, you want to help people find their zone of genius and help them work in their zone of genius. And so, because in the zone of genius, kind of goes along with that whole finding the gold in yourself, because you're only going to work better when you're in your zone, when you're doing your thing that you are passionate about, and not just give them a job.
They should rename the library to Zone of Genius. I love that.
Zone of Genius.
Welcome.
To the Zone of Genius. I like that, yeah. We should start a petition, rename Fulton Library to the Zone of Genius.
Exactly.
You're gonna get me fired. Your students are all revolutionaries. had a friend who used to work at this university, and they wanted to put in this coffee shop, and they were having a competition to name this coffee shop. They said it's just some place where students can go between their courses, grab a cup of coffee, meet, talk, whatever. And so my friend submitted this potential name, which I think is perfect, and I think we should have. We called it the Intercourse Cafe.
That's perfect.
I was like, that is brilliant.
I mean, that's what they described it as.
Exactly, you know. Meet you at the Intercourse Cafe. That would be great. I think we should name, was it Mama Fulton's or whatever is down there, you know? We could have the Zone of Genius with the Intercourse Cafe.
We're a really progressive school.
We are.
And you ask somebody to go get a coffee, they're like,
Like, what do you mean? Is this like a Netflix and chill coffee?
But imagine the specials that they could offer, you know? The all-nighter.
The bedroom sex.
Yeah, exactly. Paragraph 28 says, in some lyceums, and the lyceums were in the 19th century within the Transcendental Movement, there were these places where people would go to listen to lectures about whatever. I mean, it could be about anything. It says that in some lyceums, they tell me they have voted to exclude the subject of religion. But how do I know what their religion is, and when I am near to or far from it? Think of the religion of capitalism, the worship of the economy, of the almighty dollar. It would seem that this is more the contemporary religion than Christianity or Judaism or Islam. It's the notion of this mythical being called the economy, which can either be placated or angered and will have its vengeance upon us if we don't behave according to its dictates. I mean, I could be offending some of you right now by, violating your religion of capitalism. But that goes along the idea of what your principle is. Next paragraph says, we select the granite for underpinning our houses and barns. We build fences of stone, but we do not ourselves rest on an underpinning of granitic truth. That granite rock of truth that establishes our principle. As we grow older, Thoreau says, we grow coarser in our ways and do not adhere to our ultimate principle. The principles of truth, of justice, of courage, of wisdom, these are the principles that we should found our life upon. We should base our lifestyle upon this. There's so much good stuff in here. Okay, I've been talking for far too long. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? What did you like, dislike about this? I want to know. And don't worry if you hurt you're not going to hurt my feelings by saying this was the most boring piece of shit I've ever read in my life. Okay? You can say that. You would be wrong, but you can say it.
I really liked this reading actually, like, really enjoyed it. I feel like I liked what he was talking about, but then I also felt like a lot of the time when I read stuff like this, I just like fall asleep. But I felt like every paragraph was like painting a picture, and every paragraph was like something new, and it was really engaging, and I was pleasantly surprised by
Well,
reading
good.
this.
Well, good, I'm glad. There anything that stuck out of your mind at all about it?
I just feel like I just so agreed with his views on like leisure and like stop working so much that I was just like, yes, the whole time, but yeah.
Okay, on paragraph 31, he's talking about, we rarely meet a person who can tell us any news which he has not read in the newspaper or been told by his neighbor. And for the most part, the only difference between us and our fellow is that he has seen the newspaper or been out to tea, and we have not. He's talking about making our own lives newsworthy, sharing with our fellows what we're doing, what we're passionate about. You know, the affairs in Ukraine and in Palestine, and for this upcoming presidential election. I could read those on my own time, and I do. But that's not the news that I want to hear when I meet someone and say, hey, what's the news? I want to know what's new in your life, what new passion you have, what principle you're basing your life off of, and how that is coming to play. It's just so exciting.
I liked in that same area he was talking about like spending time like just with yourself. He's like, I can't even read the news once a week. Like I'm too busy with my own thoughts, and I thought that was.
It seems to me that I'm not dwelt in my native region. The sun, the clouds, the snow, the trees cannot serve two masters. It requires more than a day's devotion to know and to possess the wealth of a day. There's so much going on in the world that is fascinating. That is just that tree that I keep staring at throughout this whole class is fascinating. It is amazing, the colors and the animals that are living in it and all of the cool things that are going on. Paragraph 36. I see, and I'm talking again, and you need to interrupt more. I am astonished to observe how willing men are to lumber their minds with rubbish, to permit idle rumors and incidents of the most insignificant kind to intrude on ground which should be sacred to thought. Shall the mind be a public arena where the affairs of the street and the gossip of the tea table chiefly are discussed? Or shall it be a quarter of heaven itself? I read that and I think of People magazine. I don't know how many of you have ever seen or read People magazine. It is absolute crap. I mean, what does it matter who Britney Spears is dating or Beyonce's new outfit looks like? Who cares? What does that matter? Should your mind turn into what he defines as a town sewer, or shall it be a slice of heaven itself, where you discuss and think about beautiful and noble things, where you are becoming wiser, a better human? I keep saying this term, better human. I'll rewrite that so it's a little more legible. What are the unique attributes that we, as a consequence of our humanity, possess? What distinguishes us from all other life on earth? What does it mean to be human?
I feel like art is a pretty unique.
Art? You say art?
Yeah, art.
I agree.
Pretty good, human.
Cooking.
Was that
Cooking.
cooking?
I think more along the lines of art is creativity,
Okay.
being able to develop new things.
Looking towards the future.
Okay.
Like being able to plan, like we're planners.
Okay. We could go with the 4 classic virtues that we discussed last time, wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. But with art, even if you are not an artist, okay, I'll do it. I have always, my entire life, wanted to be able to draw the human figure, okay? That's never gonna happen for me. It's just not gonna happen. So, I express my artistry in a different way. Okay? I knit my own socks. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever watched Doctor Who, okay? But these were inspired by the TARDIS in Doctor Who. So, this is how I express my artistic ability. I can also, fourth floor is like, what the hell's going on? I can also appreciate artwork too. The notion of artistic appreciation, wow, that is a beautiful photograph. That is a beautiful painting. That is a beautiful landscape. By becoming a full human, we are exercising all of these unique attributes that we possess. Okay, another great section here. Paragraph 45. The chief want in every state that I've been into was a high and earnest purpose in its inhabitants. People, what they want the most is a purpose, a reason. I had a colleague who would refer to it as, that little scrap of paper that you hand to your granddaughter on your deathbed that says what the meaning of your life was. That purpose. This difference between a career versus calling. I am less interested in this, what your career is. I am more interested in what your calling is. What have you been called to do? What is your reason for living? And it could be something incredibly simple, right? My calling is to be the best dog parent I can be. That could be my calling in life.
I haven't figured out my calling yet, but just kind of going along this notion, nobody does anything without knowing the why they do it a lot of the time. Because whenever we do something, there's usually a reason we're doing it. For example, we're working because we need money. The why is, why are you working? Because you need money. But if there's a lot of whys in our life that we need to figure out why we're doing certain things and really align those why are we doing it to align with our calling or our principles so that we can truly find what our calling is. Because if we don't ask the why, then we're never going to find our calling to an extent.
I agree. So, final note before I let y'all go. Last sentence of this reading. Why should we not meet, not always as dyspeptics to tell our bad dreams, and dyspepsia is indigestion, is that kind of feeling. But why should we not meet, not always as dyspeptics to tell our bad dreams, but sometimes as eupeptics, so in good spirits, to congratulate each other on the ever-glorious morning. And do not make an exorbitant demand, surely. Why don't we meet people in high spirits instead of complaining about everything that's happening, celebrating the gloriousness of the day? How exciting it is. You guys aren't smiling. None of you are smiling right now. That's better. Think about it. This is so art, poetry, philosophy. This is the marrow of life itself. This is what gives purpose to our existence. Or at least some of us. At least some of our existence. Okay. I'm trying to calm down now.
Oh, I thought you were just trying to blow your wisdom on us.
Oh yes, that's it.
Disperse.
These pearls of wisdom that are flying out of this mouth.
Exactly.
Yes.
Absorbing via mitosis.
Exactly, yeah. All right, thank you all very, very much. I will see you